Hi, Dr. Versalati here, talking about the linguistic tools of analysis. We're going to talk about 4 linguistic tools of analysis, and we're going to use these tools to identify the syntactic category of a word in a given sentence. This might also be called word category or part of speech. So you might have heard things such as nouns and verbs being called parts of speech. So that's what we're going to use these tests for, to determine what part of speech or syntactic category the word is in a particular context, in a particular actual sentence. Now the first one, syntactic information. Syntax is the linguistic subarea that deals with how sentences and phrases can be constructed out of smaller phrases and words. This is something that you know about your native language because you've heard lots and lots of examples. And we can use that syntactic information because we've heard lots and lots of examples, we have found that there are patterns. Words of a particular category tends to occur with words of other specific categories in a certain order. So we have heard lots of examples like the book, a pen, his car. And we've heard them and we know that this is the order that it goes. We would not say book the, we know it's the book. And we see that these little words tend to occur before these other words that are nouns. So there's this pattern here that these little words tend to occur before nouns. And this is I'm going to abbreviate noun phrase here as NP. So noun phrases can consist of a determiner in noun. So we've found that pattern. You might recognize the and as articles, and that they're articles, you might have learned that, but we see that the syntactic category of determiner is bigger than articles because other words in addition to articles can be put in that same slot, like his. We could say the car or his car. We could say the book or his book. So we see that these other words in addition to articles can be in that same slot in a noun phrase. So if I give you another example like that cat, you can see that same pattern, right? There's a little word that before a noun, cat, and we can see that that's the same kind of pattern. And we can substitute just to check. That cat is mean. We could say, put it even in a full sentence, or we could say the cat is mean. So we can substitute that for a word that we know is already in that category, like the. So we have good information because of the syntax that it's right before a noun inside a noun phrase, and we also just did the substitution test. It's when we take when we're testing a syntactic category, we replace it, we substitute it with a member of another category, a word that we know its category. Let's look at this example. I went to Google that answer. Now, say we didn't know what Google was doing in this sentence, what syntactic category it was in this sentence. Well, let's substitute it. Let's take a guess that it's a verb and substitute it with other verbs and see if it works. I want to find that answer, I want to know that answer. That all works. So we have pretty good evidence that using the substitution test that in this sentence, Google is being used as a verb. That wouldn't work if we tried to substitute it with a noun, right? I want to cat that answer. I want to dog that answer. I want to desk that answer. That doesn't quite sound right. It would be some very interesting creative use of desk and cat for that to make sense. So we found out that Google is a verb by substituting it with other verbs. Now notice we did more than one verb because sometimes we can be tricked if we only substitute it with one thing. And we want to use a prototypical, if we think it's a verb, we want to use prototypical verbs. Action verbs are prototypical verbs to see if it is one of that syntactic category. So what do I mean by prototypical? Well, a prototype is a good example. The first thing that comes to your mind. The linguistic definition is for any given set, it's a member that exhibits the typical qualities of the members of the set. Now, individual members of a set could be closer or farther than typical. So let's do this example of birds. If I wanted to find out, if I wanted to place members of the set like cardinal, crane, and penguin inside this concept map of birds with the birdiest bird in the center and the less prototypical birds a little bit farther from the center, relative their prototypicality, what would we do here? Keeping in mind that a prototypical member of the set exhibits the typical qualities, well, what's the typical quality of birds? Well, they have feathers, they fly, they maybe they sing songs, maybe they eat seeds, maybe they have little beaks, things like that. So thinking of that, you would say maybe a cardinal is a prototypical, or a robin is a prototypical bird. Crane's a little less prototypical because I don't think they sing songs and their beak's different. And of course, penguins are, they're still birds, but they would be on the outer side of this concept map for prototypicality because they don't have all of the qualities that we would expect of birds. We can do that same kind of thing with syntactic categories. So what is a nouny noun, right? So we can, we might think of things like cat or book for a nouny noun, a prototypical noun. For a verb, I mean, you can pick your own. These are just some examples that I'm giving. For a verb, you're going to want to pick an action verb because those are very prototypical. For a determiner, as we talked about already, we're going to use the. Adjectives like as blue or hot or happy tend to occur. These words are prototypical because they tend to fit everywhere adjectives fit. And for prepositions, you want to probably pick a concrete one like under or in, because prepositions are often describing locations. Okay, so we've done syntax and substitution, so let's move on to morphology, the linguistic subarea that deals with word making and word marking. We could ask ourselves what suffixes can be added to nouns, or what suffixes can create a noun. Like we have a noun cat, we said it's prototypical. What suffix can we add? Well, we can add the plural marker, like we can say cats, books, and we see that we see this pattern that the plural markers can be added to nouns. That's using morphology to identify the syntactic category of a word. We can also say what suffixes create a noun, like he's known for his sensitivity. We know that sensitivity is a noun because we can use the substitution test. He is known for his car, he is known for his cat, he is known for his book, so we know it's a noun, but we also see that it has this ending, ity, and we see the same ending in other words like purity, not just in sensitivity. And so we see that this pattern might be that certain suffixes result in a noun category. Another one is ion, like detection, or ness, like happiness. We could do the same thing with verbs. I'm just going to go over one little example because it's reliable. We could add ing to and put it into a sentence like I am Googling that question to test in that suffix of the ing or the ed shows us that we're using that word Google as a verb in that sentence. We can also you can think of other ones on your own, like maybe eyes, like ize, something like that. So we've done all of the test except semantics, which is the linguistic subarea that deals with word meaning. Now, you might have heard that a noun is a person, place, thing, or idea, but how would we apply that if we had a sentence like this? Now, you might say, well, this is a creative example, it doesn't count. But if you think about it, that's what linguists do when they're studying a language that they don't know, and it's also the situation a lot of times for learners, right? If the learner doesn't know the meaning of each and every word in the sentence, it's really hard to say if it's a person, place, thing, or idea. So we use other ways to identify. Now, all languages have nouns, and we have found that nouns tend to refer to concrete and time-stable entities. What do I mean by concrete? It means it can be perceived by our senses. What do I mean by time stable? I mean that if what it is now, like if it's a book to right now, it's also it was a book yesterday, it's a book a minute from now, it's a book a day from now, a week from now, a month from now, a decade from now. A book is something we can touch, but it also stays a book. We can contrast that to verbs, where verbs might happen for just a second, but if I sneeze, it doesn't mean I'm sneezing a minute from now or an hour from now. It's not, a sneeze is not time stable. Now we know that there are concrete nouns and abstract nouns, so abstract nouns would be less prototypical. So just keep that in mind as well. That's not true of all nouns that they're concrete and time stable, but that's part of it. So if we put nouns, and this shows that we could even put nouns, the idea of nouns, put these examples inside there, right? Put the nouniest noun in there, probably the cat. That would be our prototype. Okay, so we can see that they are all nouns because they fit in the syntax, and we can add plural markers. She likes the cats, things like that. But I want you to think about, what does the semantic test and the concepts of prototypes add to the definition that you might have learned as a person, place, thing, or idea? Think about what does it mean to add to your repertoire syntactic analysis and morphological analysis. Okay, now let's put what we have reviewed in action. Think about these examples and use the different linguistic tools to explain maybe these tricky sentences. Identify, pause the recording and identify which syntactic category each of the underlined words are. Remember, you're going to want to use more than one test, and think about which two tests are most useful for each one. Go ahead and pause this and work on that. Okay, so I'm going to sum up what we have done in this screencast. We have 4 linguistic tools of analysis: substitution, syntax, morphology, and semantics. When you're using the substitution test, you want to use prototypical words representing that category, and you want to use more than one when you substitute. For the syntax test, be careful that your identification of the surrounding words is correct. For morphology, think about suffix in the resulting category. And for semantics, be careful to consider the word as it is used in that particular sentence. Okay, so this is the list of the linguistic tools of analysis in the order that tends to be most reliable. Go ahead and conduct your analysis with one of these, and then test your results with another one. If the results are in conflict, use another one. Okay, let's use our linguistic tools of analysis.